Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to your Daily Penguin, our tour through my Penguin Classic wall back there. Sorry for the interruption in service yesterday. It was pouring rain and freezing cold here in Boston. Today it's bright sunny and freezing cold here in Boston, but yesterday it was pouring rain, and I always underestimate how badly that will affect my Wi-Fi. I don't know why it should. I don't think the water droplets are bouncing off waves of anything, of energy of one kind or another, but nevertheless it does, inevitably. And everything just slowed to a crawl after sunset, so that I posted them. I had two videos made yesterday that just didn't upload. I just sat there while they were just trying and trying and trying to upload. So you're getting two penguins today. And I mentioned yesterday that I would go back today to something, maybe an old favorite, maybe an old friend, as opposed to legal documents or Arthurian legends that I don't particularly like. But then I realized that you can't really force that. I'm not orchestrating this at all. If I were orchestrating this Daily Penguin, then I would make it like a syllabus. We wouldn't be bouncing backwards and forwards in time. We'd be talking about period after period after period in a linear fashion. And if I were orchestrating it in a personal way, then it would be all hits, and I would leave out the duds. I would leave out the people that... In other words, it didn't feel right finishing up Chrétien de Troyes. It didn't feel right to just intentionally pick a book that I absolutely love. I went for the next one. But it turns out the next one is enough of a change anyway, because this is an amazing volume. We mentioned before that one of the categories of Penguin Classics that has come up a number of times in this little feature of ours, this year-long feature of ours, are Penguin Classics that are great creations on their own. A different thing from just taking Thucydides and having somebody translate him and then slapping an introduction on it. That's very worthy in its own way. But there are other kinds of Penguin Classics where the editors craft a volume, where they curate an experience for you. And some of those can be magnificent. And this is one of them. This is from, I think, 2015. So before we knew each other. This is the works of the Gawain poet. In a great big, look at the size of this thing. A great big, this gives you an idea of how much scholarship is involved here. How much critical apparatus you get, because you wouldn't need, this is the pearl and cleanness, not Garth Greenwell's cleanness, and patience, and then Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. So 4 works by the Gawain poet, whose name we don't know, whose life we know nothing about, all from one manuscript in the British Museum. And this has extensive notes on each individual poem, broad introductory essays, tons and tons of endnotes by Ad Potter and Mira Stokes. And it's an amazing volume, just amazing. We've already seen Gawain and the Green Knight in a Penguin Classic, but this is much later and much, much better. And in addition to all of the critical apparatus that just makes it a volume to have, this is also not translated. Instead, you get a huge amount of introductory material, forwards to every poem, notes on every poem, but you also get the original English with glosses at the bottom. Now, there are 2 ways that publishers typically do that. They will, if they want to do that, they will. We've seen both of them on this Penguin Classic tour. Sometimes you'll get the original, and there'll be a gloss at the end of each line for whatever in that particular line is maybe not immediately recognizable to a reader of modern English. But this requires so much of that you couldn't really do it. So they're at the bottom of every page. But on the page itself, you are getting exactly what you see if you go to the museum and see this book. You're getting exactly that, all cleaned up, and you are just expected, like with the big fat original Chaucer that we saw, that volume that I showed you, you're just expected to do a little of the work here yourself in order to experience this poet as close to directly as you can. And it works. I'm here to tell you, it works. It works. After a while of effort, maybe take one of the smaller poems first before you start on Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. But reading Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, once you are accustomed to the sound and nature and the look of this English, is an unbelievably great experience. It will put to shame reading that poem, that famous poem, in anybody's quote-unquote translation. You just won't do it anymore. You won't look at those the same way anymore. The only way that you'll ever consult them is if, like me, you would have to write about them as translations. But if for pleasure to reread any of these things, once you have the hang of it, you'll never go back. Same thing with Chaucer. Once you have the hang of reading this English, and it doesn't take long to do. It really doesn't. One afternoon of effort will do it. Then you'll never go back, because you'll see right away what a modernized English version has to leave by the wayside. Even with the best of intentions, we saw the Neville Coghill translation of Chaucer, update of Chaucer, and the Neville Coghill version is justly loved. It is fantastic as a reading experience, but you only have to read a bit, one tale from Chaucer in the original, to see what Coghill had to leave out. He had to make choices. All translators do. So my idea is, well, then why, then obviously, since that is the case, and we've seen that is the case, the vagaries of translation here has been a constant theme in this March of the Penguins. And as far as I'm concerned, if you know that's the case, that even the best translator has to leave stuff out, has to change the nature of the work, well, then why wouldn't you go for the original everywhere you can, right? You don't have to be multilingual to do that in this case, because you already read English. This is just an older version of English. You can get the hang of it in no time at all. And what a volume for Penguin to do. I mean, I know that probably the reason why they did, or a big reason why they did, is for schools. Probably that's the same way as with the original Chaucer that we saw, but I'll take it. I'll take whatever reason. I'll take it. So that is your Penguin Classic for today, is the works of the Gawain poet, which includes a whole nother text of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, very different from the one we saw originally. And that is going to do it for today. So we're just gonna waddle on to the next Penguin on the shelf. So I'll wrap this up for now, and I'll see you then. Thank you, BookTube.